Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Men and Sex. I'm your host, Mr. Wood. And today we've got a never done before episode. I'm really excited. Special guest. And we're actually doing this live with a group, which is new as well. We're having a Q&A that's going to follow the actual podcast discussion and excited to see how this develops. I have my friend, amazing human being, Phoenix Amara with me. Phoenix, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wood. Have you ever realized your name is sometimes a nickname for cock? I love it.
It was too perfect. I had to continue with it and just and get that good surname in there, you know?
Hey, love it. Love it. It's a
So
pleasure to be here.
this
Yeah.
episode came to fruition from a discussion and experiences Phoenix and I have had recently. Phoenix does some amazing in-person work with men, and it's called a hero's quest, which I'm going to have Phoenix explain more here in a little bit. But I saw Phoenix was putting these on, and I am personally on my own path of working with showing up more assertive and allowing some of that dark masculine to come through, some of that primal power, more of that directive yang energy. So I actually went and did one of these sessions with Phoenix. It was potent, powerful. I'm excited to talk about it more. And then Phoenix actually had some things in her own life that's having her moving and thinking about being in different destinations that also correlated to this topic of men and their ability to be assertive and speak to what they desire. So that's what we're going to kind of peel apart and unravel here in this episode is the lost art of assertiveness.
Mm.
Now, of course, there's one side of the pendulum that is an over being overactive in assertiveness, and that's not what we're so much focusing on this episode. It's more so we're focusing on the inactive, the inability for men to show up and be assertive. So I just want to make that clear that there are distinctions in that, and we're focusing more so on the inability or blockages from stepping into that assertive nature. So, Phoenix, I'd love for you to talk about anything there and also want to dive into just kind of the work you do with men, like you
Mm.
did with me, that allows them to step into this dark masculine or this assertive energy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe I'll start with just a little bit of my journey into this work, just so people understand where I'm coming from, my training. I started off working with a Tantra teacher over 11 years ago. And it catapulted me onto like a totally new trajectory that actually more aligned with my values, my spiritual practice. Tantra for me was life changing in the fact that it really helped me understand that my embodiment is spiritual, that my feelings and my pleasure and my lived experience is a spiritual experience. And so that really cracked me open to the world of embodiment. And I started, working with clients, doing a lot of body work at that time and working with the body. And, through my work around archetypes, creative expression, art therapy, I started really getting into like Joseph Campbell's work and, Jungian philosophy and really looking at like the development of the psyche, right, through story, right? So the soul speaks through story and understanding how men and women's psyches develop through, these understandings, right, that we go through. And for men, especially, understanding the hero's quest, right, that men really need to go on through like rites of passage. It really gave me deeper insight into men, but also understanding the lack of rites of passage in our Western culture and understanding how that's really impacted men as a whole, right? So I've always been very interested in sacred sexuality. So a lot of my training and expertise has been around like somatic therapy, breath work, but particularly archetypes and actually working with people through ceremonies and rituals to connect with those archetypes and bring them online, right? Which is what these rites of passage did culturally, historically. Men used to get separated from their tribe, right? Separated from what they knew, brought off to, the woods or the mountains. They oftentimes had to go off by themselves, had to go on a personal inquiry, had to face danger, had to face themselves and their courage. and then they would come back transformed, right? We don't really have that here in this culture. Rites of passage as a whole have been reduced to birthdays, legal drinking ages, getting your driver's license, coming across porn. Like there's no training for how to become a woman, for how to step into fatherhood, for how to be with your first lover. And so, no wonder we're in the crises that we find ourselves in, and especially in love and relationships, right? Men's first introduction to sexuality is often through porn, which oftentimes is created by men for men, has no skill-based practice, reduces them down to a 5-minute wank in their back seat or in their bedroom under the guise of shame. And so, there's a correlation, right? Porn addiction actually only thrives in shame and guilt. Right? And it's one of the greatest epidemics in Western culture that nobody is talking about. People are having less sex than they ever have had before. People are having less relationships than they've ever had before. Like, the stats are showing this. Divorce rates have never been higher. And talk to any expert in love, dating, and relating, and they're going to tell you the same thing across the board. Like, we're in a dating crisis, we're in a relationship crisis. And that's where the work that I'm in and other people are in around intimacy and connection, like it's only going to increase with the advent of AI technology, where there's more disconnection, more human to robot connection. People are going to need to learn and grow. And this work is only going to increase, right? Because we need to learn the skills. We don't get any kind of emotional intelligence skills growing up. You learn how to regurgitate information, memorize. Anyways, going on a tangent here, right? But it's because I'm so passionate about this work, and that's ultimately what brings me to it, is seeing people transform, seeing men cry for the first time, seeing couples break through the barriers to their love that have maybe come from infidelity or porn addiction or all of these different things, and actually start to relate to each other in a more authentic way, helping women connect with their wild, unleashed pleasure, helping men learn practices in how to relate with the feminine and how to open her and create trust. Like, oh, it has changed my life.
Can I just share a little bit about our session together?
Yes, please do. Yes, I'm curious.
So as I said, I went to Phoenix to be in a space that could allow me to let some of this power come through in a place that was safe, it was okay, and encouraged. And a lot of what Phoenix set the stage for was for me to speak directly to what I wanted and how I wanted it. Whether it was giving me some prompts on a paper to read to her. So she's actually giving me these cues to read, and I can read them and be like, oh, do I want to read this or not? But the practice of me saying it out loud to her, and then, saying, I want you to do this, don't do this, in just that practice of, I think so much of this is for men is about opening up the throat and speaking in my
Mhm.
own experience. So I was getting to have this. I mean, and obviously Phoenix is gorgeous, and you're and especially when she's there in front of you, and in these positions where you're allowed to be more assertive and kind of call on this dark masculine and be like, I want you to do this. And
Mhm.
I noticed so much in the practice of how much room I had to be more assertive, to be more powerful, to be more directive. I could feel how much room I had, even in those subtle practices with you. But I found it such a great space to hold, because I think, when we talk about practicing assertiveness, men need spaces for that, because it's not in the world today. A lot of it is men need to get out of the way. They're taking up too much space. They're being too dominant, the patriarchy, all these things. And to a
Mhm.
lot of men that can go, oh, I can't say anything. I can't ask for anything. I just need to, get out of the way.
Yeah. And I want to like also briefly speak to like the beauty of, I think in Western culture, the men have also been like, hey, we're here to listen. We're here to listen and see and witness, right? Um, And at the same time, because I think the feminine had been so subjugated and suppressed,
Yes,
there also was a lot of projection that came through, understandably,
totally.
right? Understandably, like, you know, people often don't realize like women have only been able to get credit cards, since like I think the 80s under their own name, at least here in Canada, 70, was it 60s maybe? Like it hasn't been a long time. It's only been in my generation really that women have actually had far more, rights in terms of like, yeah, being able to own homes and, go off and do their own thing. Like my grandmother still had to get a credit card under her husband's name.
Yeah,
Like I think people don't realize how much we were suppressed, and so
totally.
obviously there's going to be a lot of hurt that comes through the lineages, through women's ancestors, and I want to acknowledge that, yeah, probably like we have projected a lot of our anger and pain maybe without having done some of that work, right? We're trying to do that work now through embodiment practice and rage work, and I think we're at this place where it's like we are recognizing the power of the masculine and what it does give to us, the medicine of that dark primal masculine, and we want it. We're hungry for it, you know? Yeah.
There's a saying that continuously comes to me, and it's like a little corny or whatever, but it always comes to my mind that we're in this together of what we're facing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I never want to discount what women have gone through, are going through. And there's this kind of the classic pendulum swing of
Yes.
that, how far the pendulum is swinging the other direction of
Mm-hmm.
men not speaking and not being assertive. And I come from the men's work world where men come together to do the emotional work, to do the psyche work, to do the shadow work. And particularly in that world, those are men that have cracked themselves open to be in touch with their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I see a lot of the men that don't have that ability to be healthy and assertive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the thing I've been hearing is, obviously I'm such a big supporter of men's work. I'm a big supporter of the men's work movement. There's a lot of amazing communities now across North America that are doing like really pioneering work. And time and again, now I'm hearing from men that like, okay, we're opening up our hearts, we're connecting with other brothers, we're talking about our emotions maybe for the first time ever and beginning to trust other men. But now I feel like the next step is to really talk about things like porn addiction, like, how to access that dark, healthy, primal energy and masculinity. And then, of course, in the realm that I've been in for a long time, which is like around, sacred sexuality and tantra, um, they've been pioneering in that area for a while now. But I think there's also, um, how do we kind of find the intersection too? Because a lot of that world is primarily poly based, which is
Totally.
beautiful, but I'm not really poly. I'm not poly. I'm pretty monogamous, but I find that like it's very interesting, right? So like how do we kind of cross the connections, right? How do we make it more accessible for people like, people just like me, right? Who maybe are monogamous or who are in relationships or, who are wanting to date and can't, maybe who have certain limitations in meeting people, right? So I think that is where the conversations need to start happening. And like, how do men in men's circles talk about this stuff? Yeah.
Can I share a little bit about our conversation about you going to Europe?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
So one of the things that really stood out to me is I was having a conversation with Phoenix about doing a live or doing a podcast. And she shared with me, oh yeah, I also said I wanted to do in-person stuff with Phoenix. And Phoenix messaged me and said, hey, I think I'm going to be moving this summer. And it turned into this discussion that she had gone out and put all this time into looking beautiful, which is a spectacle. I know, and Phoenix puts time and energy into looking beautiful. And not a single man walked up to her to compliment her with the assertive energy that it takes to just go give a compliment and be like, wow, you look beautiful. You look amazing. And give that honoring.
Mm.
And how that, and obviously I would love to hear you share your story of this, obviously. And it really impacted me of how much I experienced that myself and men around me, which is,
Mm.
do we have what it takes to go up and talk to the beautiful people that catch our eye and have us feel something inside and just say, wow, you really captivated me from across the room, and that's it.
Mhm. I actually even have a practice that I want to invite everyone listening to try within the next 48 hours of listening to this based on that story. Um, and I think to give some backstory, like, I'm calling in partnership. Like I'm someone who's done a lot of work on herself. And I'm still, yeah, I'm living my life. I'm enjoying it, but I am calling in deep partnership. And it's been interesting because, as a woman, like you put your light on, right? And the light on is like being open and receptive. And so I went to this particular Christmas party. I mean, there was like over 100 people there. It was a massive party with a lot of amazing humans. But it was just really interesting to not have one man approach me or try to make, conversation with me. And it's not me being egotistical. It's just like, what? Like, it was just really and I was wearing like this gorgeous beaded like pearl, like women were just coming up to me and be like, oh my God, like where did you get that dress? You look like a movie star. Like it was interesting. The women were coming up to me and not a single man came up to me. And it was just so fascinating. I just got back from Portland from a concert this past weekend. And, I just noticed, like, gosh, walking down the street, men would even look at me. Like, men would, here in Vancouver, it's a common thing that, like, we notice as women that men just don't look at it. It's not just me, it's literally, I have so many friends I've talked to about this that are even of differing, values or perspectives. And it's like, yeah, men are so maybe intimidated or afraid, or they're just not interested. I don't know what it is. Um, but I did notice quite a difference in Portland, where even the men were just more like they would smile at me and they would, just offer that energy of appreciation. And of course, I've been to Europe and like over there, oh, I feel so beautiful as a woman. I feel so beautiful. And I think the women that complain about the attention, and this is going to sound triggering, but I think it's they haven't done the work to actually be in their boundaries.
Mm. Ooh,
Okay.
say more, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when a woman hasn't done the work to stand in her boundaries, she's going to get triggered by any, like in terms of attention from men. Okay. She's going to get triggered because she doesn't actually know how to energetically hold that boundary space of like, well, I don't want to be inappropriately touched. But I traveled for a month and a half throughout Europe and I never had an issue with feeling unsafe. um, because I have such a strong understanding of my boundaries that, yeah, is just not something that happens to me, right? But I did receive like compliments and like just, I mean, men would just be like, bellissima. And I was like, oh, really? Oh, thank you. And just the art of flirtation, right?
Yeah.
It's a gift. And so one of the practices, I actually did it when I was in Portland. One of the practices that I have is that when you see somebody who inspires like wow, wonder, beauty, whether it's a man or a woman, I like to give them the gift of that medicine, not that it stays up here in my head or my heart,
Yeah.
but they actually get to receive it. And so
Mm.
what I like to do is I walked up to this man that I saw at an event and he just like caught my eye, and I was like, wow. And I walked up to him, I go, are you open to receiving a compliment? And he goes, yeah. And I go, I just wanted to let you know that you are the most stunning man in this entire place. And when I looked at you, my yoni blossomed with appreciation. And like his face was just like, and then I just walked away.
Now that is the art of assertiveness right there.
I mean, and the thing is, so because like I'm sure people are listening and being like, well, maybe you're not talking, men don't always have to be the one to reach out. And I'm like, yes, and right, like I'm not afraid anymore of offering that appreciation. Sometimes, obviously, there's going to be a moment where you're like, "Ooh, I'm feeling giddy and nervous," but like I think it's when we have an expectation
Yeah,
of what's going to happen,
totally.
that's what kind of adds the pressure. So if you take that pressure off and you're like, you know what, I just want to offer that person a compliment because it's going to brighten their day. It's going to make them feel good. And the more people practice that, just watch, the more you start to also receive that appreciation and attention back.
Mm, mm,
Right? It starts to what I call it's the erotic current within a culture. The erotic current is the art of flirtation. It's the like when I was in Europe, Ian, I would like go to the coffee shop and like the 70-year-old barista would be like, "Oh, darling, you're looking so beautiful." And it's like, it's not like he's trying to take me home. He's not trying to bed me. He's just offering me a beautiful, flirtatious compliment. But guess what? It made my day.
mm,
And then the current passes on to someone else.
mm,
And I find in Vancouver, the erotic aliveness is very low.
mm,
I'm someone who does like I host events, I do retreats, I do trainings. I'm constantly in my embody work practice, but I'm just talking as a witness, as a reflection. It's a lot to try to keep a city energetically alive with your very own frequency, right? And yeah, I find dating here and meeting people like it's interesting. And I definitely really enjoyed my time in Europe when I was there. As a woman, I felt so alive, so appreciated, and cherished, and like it was just, mm,
mm.
yes.
I think from my own excavation, discovery, and looking inwards at the deeper why.
Mm,
Why is this way for me? Why do I not just feel grounded in seeing someone, feeling something, and going, "Oh wow,
mm,
I felt this way when I saw you." And it is so much in my discovery in myself, men that I work with, books that I read. It commonly comes up that it's that rejection aspect, that
mm,
I am focused on wanting something from the interaction,
mm.
and
Yes. Yeah.
losing the connection to the vitality and richness that
Hmm.
comes from just feeling the thing and speaking to it, and
Hmm.
that being the pleasurable action in itself. And
Yeah.
I think that's where I currently am really practicing is how do I find the pleasure, the arousal, the vitality in feeling that, in speaking it, and it's just like a gift. I can't decide. They may have been abused by someone that looks like me. They may be scared of someone that looks like me. I can't decide what they do with that. But my enjoyment is simply being in that experience of feeling something from what I see or experience and sharing that and just putting it out. And that's my turn on.
Hmm. I think what I'm also hearing too, as well, is that like the more that the focus is on you, like personally, and what you're feeling and your nervousness, it takes away from the beauty that can happen, right? I used to have a mentor who, would share like when you're more focused on yourself in like say a consult call with a client, right, versus the person that you're actually supposed to be there to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to start making it about them, and less about you. And when we're focused on like, oh, well, am I worthy? Am I going to be hot enough? Like personal magnetism doesn't come from these things that we think it does. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually like curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity. Oh my God. Like, when someone shows curiosity to want to learn more about me, I'm like, that's hot. That
Mm-hmm.
is so fucking hot. Presence when you're so focused on like, oh, well, does this person think I'm hot or attractive, versus like being present with the person, right? And this shows up in the fucking bedroom. It shows up in love relationships all the time. And as women, we are so attuned to that. Like, for example, I can tell when a lover watches too much porn because they are literally not present with me. They are not in the experience with me, and I can feel it. I can
I've
feel
heard this several times lately.
all of it. Yeah. I can feel all of it. I can feel when someone cheats on me. I can feel, oh, yeah, like as women that are very in tune, you know, I was talking to a client the other day and, he was like, yeah, I'm really stoked that I'm getting an experience of what it's like to be with a powerful woman, a powerful, empowered woman. Because he was sharing that, like his ex wife, he had really gone after her because she was like meek and submissive, and he thought it would make him feel powerful. Okay. But what he realized was that he was getting a false sense of masculine power
Mm.
and he wasn't feeling met, you know? And, what I shared with him was like, isn't it interesting that power, for me, in terms of attraction to men, power doesn't come from like him having to be of a certain status or even a certain economic status or, these things that we think socially is what makes a man powerful. It's actually, can he be present with me? Is he actually genuinely intentional and interested in me as a human, diverse soul? Because when he can see that, he's also seeing himself, you know? These are the things that I think for a woman like myself are the most valuable characteristics. And it's actually very simple to be a powerful man and to feel met by a powerful woman, presence, curiosity,
It's
truly.
I love the both of those things so much.
Mm,
And I find that we are what men we so often face are is the mind. The
yeah.
mind in all we've been collecting data our whole life to try to imagine what a man should be because we didn't have those rites of passage. So
Mm-hmm.
many of us didn't have those rites of passage of older men bringing us together, bringing us through that
Oh.
hero's journey that initiates us, that guidance from older, wiser men. And so a lot of us are putting these puzzle pieces together through these crazy life experiences from movies, from social media. And it's just like there's so much information that
Mm.
it can it's crazy to me how often I hear that what not only women want but partners want so much is presence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a big part of finding the presence that partners want is finding our way through our insecurities and
Mm-hmm.
our own wounds and the things that draw us out of the moment back into our mind or the traumas of our bodies.
Yes, Ian. What's landing for me here as you share all of this is the presence. Like when someone's like, well, what the fuck does that mean? The presence is just you. It's your essence, not hindered by um, self-consciousness or the masks of insecurity or the wounds of shame and guilt.
Totally.
That's what detracts from your ability to be present with me right here, right now.
Totally.
Like I get it. We all have shadows. We all have, fuck ups. We have all done things. But I want to be with someone that can own that and accept it for themselves and then be able to be like, yeah, this is the part of me that's kind of fucked up and actually own it instead of trying to hide it. Because that's the other thing. I can always tell when someone's trying to hide stuff and you're like, what? You're not being genuine here. There's something like it adds energy, right? And so I think the gifts that the masculine and feminine give to each other, right, is that we just want you right now, right here, in whatever iteration of your growth and journey you are in. That's what we want. Raw, unfiltered, present in your own boundaries, in your own desires. And that's what we want to explore. It's actually quite simple.
I think that we get to do a beautiful dance together too, which is just like this experience I did with you.
Yeah.
That's something I can ask my partner to do with me or someone I'm in relationship with. Like, hey, I really want to practice embodying some very assertive energy. Let's create some. Are you open to that? Let's create some boundaries. Let's create some guidelines so there's safety. Let's create a safety word. But I want to
Yeah.
practice this and I'm not going to be good at it right away, but I need to get my reps in.
Yeah.
And I get to practice that in relationship, but ultimately I can't be in a healthy assertive energy if I'm not doing unwinding the things that are blocking me from the value and love of myself.
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
i if I'm not in that value and love of myself, then that's what's going to screw up my presence or how I show up in that assertive energy.
Mm-hmm.
And something I mentioned briefly earlier is I'm either going to stay in that underactive assertiveness or that overactive assertiveness, which is a lot of what we, see in what's deemed toxic masculinity, is that overactive assertiveness. To find that middle balance point is a continual journey of practicing with another and then finding where my self-consciousness comes up, finding what was rattled in me during the
Yes.
process of where I didn't feel good enough or where I didn't speak, like what prevented me from speaking that truthfully. It's like
Yeah.
that back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that dance of polarity that you talked about, like it isn't associated necessarily with gender. Like I have a lot of queer friends, they're always, we're always harping on the Tantra community because it's quite heteronormative. And of course, when you're talking about principles, right, from like a non-dualistic perspective, it's like, how do you understand it? And I think it's just, again, it's when you break it down to like receptive and penetrative.
Yes.
And you can play back and forth, and it's not necessarily to overlay this template of like, this is the only things that you can do as a woman. You can never be assertive, right? It's like, no, sometimes I want to tie you up and put a blindfold on you and sit on your face, or I don't know. So, you know, um, but again, it's that interplay, right? And so, sometimes, and I'll maybe use like a hetero relationship, for example. Um, if the masculine, if the man feels like he's, I don't know, afraid to take control, or I don't know, he's like shy, he's going to notice energetically that his partner maybe feels less safe. Maybe she starts to take the reins of control more often, right? And then what happens is then you have this thing where the polarity gets inverse. And I see this sometimes in relationships where I'll ask them, I'm like, when's the last time you guys had sex? And they'll be like, oh, like 2 years, 3 years. I'm like, mm-hmm. Um, I got to do a sit in a session with my co-founder of the Holy Eros Institute, and we were doing a kink session with a couple. And so in their relationship, she's the dom. She's always the dom, and has lots of different partners that she doms, and they're poly. And her partner is very shy, right? And he's a big guy, like he's a big burly guy, but he's very shy. And so in the session, we had him ball gag her so she could shut the fuck up and stop giving orders and stop directing things so much, right?
Yeah.
He was in charge. And by the end of the session, she broke down in tears of pleasure to actually fully surrender control that she
Wow.
tried to maintain so much because she didn't know if he could actually hold the space for her to let go.
Wow.
So that's what I really love about like using kink and BDSM for therapy and with, the kind of work that I like to do with people, because it does allow for these understandings of receptivity in the body and also penetration in the body. Right. Sometimes I'll do this with a woman where she is shy and she's afraid to ask for what she wants. I'll make her be the dom, you know, and I'll have her take up the space and start to boss me around and direct me. Right. So it's not to say that these polarities are assigned to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
gender, but
Yeah.
it is, I think for men, yeah, getting in touch with the dark masculine is what helps them break out of the Mr. Nice Guy box.
Totally.
It also helps them heal the shame and guilt that they hide their dark masculine in, which when you do that, it manifests as porn addiction, as cheating, as being shady. And us women, we can fucking feel it. I'm telling you, we can energetically, somatically feel it. And it doesn't allow a woman to feel safe in her body. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
I always like to feel into is I feel it is like a pendulum, whether we look at, in the archetypes, they talk about the bipolar shadow, or we can
Mm,
talk about overactive or underactive,
yeah.
seeing what side I'm on. If I'm, if I'm overactive in my assertiveness, then it's a different discussion. But if I'm seeing in myself, I'm not speaking for my desires. I'm not saying the things I want. I'm hiding in my masturbation and my fantasies, and I'm not being clear. All of these are signs that, okay, I have room to expand and experience this other side so that I
Mm,
can find a new natural middle ground for myself. But I have to for me, it's like I have to overextend myself in the other direction to learn, to try things and
Yeah.
and integrate them and go, okay, where's my new balance now? Where am I acting from now?
Yeah, like some really great practices for people to explore that, I think too is, well, first I want to just kind of briefly touch on the whore virgin complex, which is quite prevalent, I think, in most people, and it's where we separate ourselves. So, I was talking with a girlfriend on the way back from Portland. We were talking about kind of the non-dualistic path, right? And an easy way to think about this is the yin yang symbol, right? It's this understanding that in duality there is a wholeness, right? That is in place, right? So night really needs day in order to exist, right? And day needs night. With Christianity and with kind of the inversion of it, I like to say, it's not like the truth of it, but the inversion that the church really tried to spread was that, there's good and then there's evil,
Right.
right? And I don't want to get into a whole debate around semantics, like, well,
Yes,
isn't
yeah.
is that? But what I want to talk about is that, like, basically, well, your desires are evil and they exist over here and you never touch them, and then your good boy or girl is over here, right? And that's the only area you get to exist upon. And I think in the non-dualistic path, right, it's like when you find healthy expressions for, say, your darkness, which is traditionally and culturally what people used to have through things like shamanic dances, through, mask work, right? They would wear these
Yeah.
deep, like, you ever go to Bali and you see they actually have a festival for the light and dark, and they actually
Yeah.
dress up as these, they look kind of like creepy, ancient, evil beings, right? But they're embodying that, right? To recognize that that's a part of them
Mm-hmm.
instead of being like, no, that's what we fight, right? And so I think that there's a more holistic understanding of life and the nature of life and the cycles. And so, like, some practices I like to share with people, it's like, give your bad boy or girl a name, start to create an archetype for them, help them adorn themselves,
Mm.
and start to think of, like, well, what would they do if they had free reign for a night, right? Would they go out dancing? Would they flirt with people? Would they,
Mm.
I don't know, like, test drive it, right? In a sense of, like, that healthy expression of it, right? Maybe they would ask for what they want, maybe they would
Yeah.
ask that person out on a date.
Yeah.
Uh, this is often what I like to share with people, or, expressing it, doing mirror work, right? Getting dressed up in that character and put on some fucking hot music. And, if you're more feminine, maybe it's like dancing sensually to yourself in the mirror and like seducing yourself. If you're a man, maybe it's doing some self touch in front of a mirror and being like, I don't know how, I can't do an impression of a guy, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
fucking
You're a
sexy,
fucking
like it's true.
stud.
Yeah,
You're a
like,
stud.
yeah, feel yourself. And I always say to people, it's like, if you can't do that with yourself, how is someone else supposed to experience that with you? How are you going to feel comfortable to share that? So you actually have to start with self practice, you know?
Mhm. Beautiful that we've made it naturally to this part because that's what I want to really finish with is the exploration and the play of okay, I find myself in this position. I'm not very assertive. I don't really speak to my desires. I'm afraid of speaking to them. I'm afraid of rejection. And I love that coming up with a character that I can go out and give myself permission. Like this is assertive Ian and whatever name comes up for that. Maybe that's Mr. Wood. Maybe that's now Mr. Wood is the assertive version of
Yes,
me.
yes, yes.
And
Um,
I get to be a different character. I can go out somewhere that I've never been. Nobody knows me there. I get to just be whatever character I want to be and I can practice acting out that part.
yeah. 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 And when we start to do that and be honest about those parts of ourselves and accept them, it becomes less of a shadow, right? And when we make something a shadow, it has more power over us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, this is where it manifests in the shadows, in the secret, in the guilt and shame.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Gosh, there's a really amazing movie. It talks about like porn addiction and kind of like the secrecy, right,
Yeah.
around our desires. And it's with, I think, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. and Scarlett Johansson, really great. But
Ooh,
yeah,
I
for
want to
people,
see that.
yeah, it's a really fantastic movie and it has a really interesting climax to it. But the message is really great and it really kind of addresses this part that exists within every man. It's that hunter energy. It's the like the heathen, like it's that part that every person has. It's the untamed feral
Wild man.
wild man. And like, fuck, but like all of these, we get so into like concepts and this and that. Is this right? Is this not? So that's why I love things like primal play. There's a whole modality around that. Doing somatic practice, somatic sensual practice, doing sometimes in our work we do ladihans, which is like blindfolded touching experiments where you have to like get into your animal and like explore people through touch and the
Wow.
smells. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to switch to some questions here in a minute, but I wanted to finish also with another simple one from that's been really fun for me
Mm,
is
do share.
I wake up in the morning and one of the first things I do is I just start writing down what I want that day and how I want it.
Mm.
This is what I want today. This is how I want it. This is what I want today. And it could be about
Mm,
relationship. It could be about work. It could be about
mm,
opportunities. It could be about exercise. But it's just
mm,
this practice of, I want this thing. This is
mm.
how I want it.
Yeah.
And not being attached to getting the thing, but just loving the deliciousness of speaking to that desire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I love that practice. Invitation to everyone listening to do that as well in the next 24 to 48 hours. Put it into practice. See what happens.
So we've got a good question here that is, how do we know when assertive is toxic?
That's a fantastic question. I think this leads back to intention,
Mm,
right? It's really like, well, what is the intention? And I think too, this piece around slowing things down, can be really helpful, right? So, for example, something we often talk about in sacred sexuality is like, try to slow down everything and actually see
ooh,
what happens. Like massage, when we do massage trainings with people in our programs, like if you think you're touching slowly, slow down even more,
oh,
right? If you think you're having a tender lovemaking session, see if you can slow down even more and get really connected to the intention, right, of what it is that you're going after. So I think that is the better question to ask is what is my intention here?
mm. And what comes up for me is communication, that clarity of communication that is the relationship in the dynamic. For me, there are experiences where I feel differently towards different women. And
Mm,
I'll say, hey, I'll just be clear. In this relationship, I feel myself have a natural pull to be more selfish, to be more self centered in my assertiveness. And that's been part. And I'm like, how does that feel for you? And sometimes women will be like, nah, that's not, that doesn't feel good to me. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, that is exactly what I want. You just come to me with whatever you want. That's what I want. So for
yeah.
me, a big piece of how does it move into toxic, or the words I like is overactive. The overactive assertiveness is a lack of communication, a lack of intention. What is our intention in the relationship, in the dynamic?
Mm.
That
Yeah.
that's what comes up for
Yeah.
me.
And you can even play around like with a partner where you're like, hey, what if we took turns just taking our pleasure from each other and actually seeing what that's like. Looking at the Wheel of Consent is a really great introduction by Betty Martin. The book is fantastic and it talks about taking pleasure, right?
Yeah.
And actually how healthy that can be. So I would start by reading that book. It's really wonderful. I also want to make sure too that we note these other great questions.
Yeah, I've got another one here I wanted to ask you, and then you pick the next one. I've got, have you considered men who are raised by only women may not have an assertive character to emulate? And I really want to speak to that one because that one hits me hard in
Mhm.
that I grew up, I only saw my dad every other weekend. He was very effeminate, and it was all about emotions, it was all about play. There was no structure. My mother held all the structure, all the masculine roles, you could say. So that's what I'm really working with. And I think what a lot of men are facing is being raised predominantly by women. Either dad wasn't home or wasn't available. I would, in my experience, this is a huge part of what men are facing when it comes to being assertive or not being assertive. So I'm with you on this one, and just saying that it's it's more of an opportunity for us. Think of how much room we have to expand in the way that we show up in an assertive nature, because we're not on a foundation that encouraged us to be an assertive masculine man. Oh, here, I got you.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful illumination, Ian. And I just put a book in the chat there. It's called Iron John by Robert Bly, and it really does tackle that question culturally for men at large, and the lack of male initiation and the anger and the pain, but also the gift that it's now giving men to return to maybe some more ancient but progressive roots, right? And listening for what is the call forward, right? I think that that's what a lot of the men's work communities have been doing, is they've been really coming together to listen to, like, well, what are we being called towards as men now? It's different than 1800 years ago when, rape was pretty common and arranged marriage and this and that. Like, where do we want to go as men, and how do we want to lead today?
Mm.
So I think the challenge also opens up a gift, to humanity. There was also a really great
Yeah,
question.
find one you liked.
Well, yeah, I wanted to touch on Diego's question, as well as the one around porn and masturbation. So,
Yeah.
just for the record, I'm totally not against masturbation. I don't think I said that, but um, there is a distinction between like self touch
Yeah.
and masturbation and just wanking one out, and I can get into that in a moment. How a man touches his penis and his cock really is a relationship with him and his masculinity. So if
Oh, I just
he's,
got chills.
yeah, yeah. So, men often basically, for the most part, and again, I'm not here to shame anybody. I'm just telling it how it is, right? I'm pretty blunt. It's within 5 to 10 minutes, and they're just trying to get rid of that energy. Okay, that sexual power that builds up, they try to get rid of it. And most men masturbate daily and ejaculate daily. When some of the first practices we start to learn in tantra and sacred sexuality is actually how to harness and build that energy. So what happens as a man when you go 3 to 5 days without masturbating, and you then, when you do, maybe you do self-touch and you edge yourself, but you don't spill that energy, and you build it and you build it. I can tell in a room full of men, the men that do practices of semen retention, I can feel it. They feel powerful. They feel like, and it's magnetizing. And I can tell the ones that are depleted, because you're actually, as a man, like, there's so much life force that you're spilling daily. And what are you offering that to? Are you offering that in ritual, in prayer, in devotion? Or are you just like, I don't know. I just watched a porn video of some people that have been hired and who might be on drugs. And, I just basically offered my very precious life force to that.
Yeah.
Ouch. Right. So, really examining the relationship with our bodies and our pleasure and our sexuality, it starts to bring us face to face with some uncomfortable truths. It's the very same question that I think, we've been in around factory farming. Like, I haven't watched porn for 15 years. And it's not to be like, oh, I'm super amazing. It's to say, like, I don't find it exciting or engaging. My mind and my imagination and my real lived experiences are far cooler and more beautiful and wild than any porn I've ever seen, and unique and beautiful. So it's kind of like, why would I want to watch garbage to inform how I relate to people? right? Because that's the other thing about porn is it's not skill based. Most of the clients that I've worked with, they have learned sexuality from porn. So there isn't a whole lot of knowledge around women's pleasure. Like it's pretty astounding, right? Most men can't last longer than 10 minutes in bed. The average woman takes 30 to 45 minutes to come of penetration and foreplay, right? So, the orgasm gap is another great thing to look into, but it's pretty big.
And
It's so big.
I think one of the huge things that you spoke to and is important to me and the men that I work with in this area is it mechanical? What is the intention behind it? And like you said, what am I offering this to?
Yeah.
What is it that I'm offering this very precious thing? Is there awareness in it? Is it just an addictive, soothing
Soothing.
tool that I use to regulate my nervous system or impact the chemistry? Those are important things to look at because it's not about the porn, it's not about the masturbation, it's the why, the deeper why, and what is it that's guiding me, because ultimately as men what it leads us to is being very disconnected from our bodies, and
Yeah.
not it's not a connective act because the information coming in our brains is so stimulating that we're all in the mind and we're not there in our body. We're not actually in our genitals experiencing it. We're up in our mind with
Yeah.
all the sensation in our genitals, and it's something that I think it's huge for men in the world today to get back into their bodies and have a more engaging self pleasure experience.
And listening to the body's wisdom, right? Like listening to the body's wisdom and letting it lead instead of you thinking back to that porn thing that you watched and trying to emulate it. And then you're not being present with your partner and then they can feel it. So then it actually creates a worse experience for everybody involved. And then you're like, oh, and so again, it's like letting the body lead. We talk about that a lot in somatic practice, right? Um,
Well,
yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much, Phoenix, for coming. I want to get you out of here on time. And I know this is a very deep conversation that we could continue to have for a long time, and maybe we'll do it again. I mean, I think we could go on the same subject into other pockets of experience and information, but I'm grateful for the work that you do. If you want to, I'm going to plug some of that information in the details. If you want to work with Phoenix in Vancouver or Europe in the coming year, I highly recommend it. And I look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Ian. There was one question I really just wanted to
Okay. Yeah.
speak
Yeah.
to. And yeah, it was around physical disability and how to experience submission more and feeling, yeah, challenged in that. And so actually I have a client I work with who is physically incapacitated, who's bound to a wheelchair. And, it's actually really fun. You can do a lot. You can play around a lot, especially mentally, right? With dynamics. Like one of the things that isn't often talked about is the mental domination and submission that you can play around with. So I would start to getting into like dirty talk and like exploring fantasy work, with your lovers, and or even finding like a kink therapist that really specializes in that because there's so much you can do that you don't necessarily need to be in certain positions to explore that. So I just wanted to share that as a resource. And again, depending on where you are in the world, um, I would recommend also looking up the Somatica Institute. It's the institute I'm currently enrolled in as well. I'm getting some more training, so I always like learning, but they do have therapeutic practitioners in pretty much every state in North America, in the States. So yeah, check them out.
Someone, if you have a little bit of information, someone asked about a kink therapist, if you have a little bit more info on that.
Yeah, again, like you can do stuff online. I've actually done kink sessions online. So I'd be more than happy to support. You can also look up one of the institutes I'm also doing some trainings in. They're called the Somatica Institute, and they do have practitioners that specialize in kink who do sessions online or in person all across the USA. So hope that helps. But
Thank you
yeah,
so
it's
much,
wonderful
Phoenix.
being here. I love talking about this stuff, and I hope that it was illuminating to hear like the feminine perspective and yeah, and I love men so much. I love the gifts that they have. I love their power. Yeah, and I want more. The feminine, we want more. all the time. So thank you, everyone,
I
for being
really,
attentive and open and looking forward. Maybe if there's enough interest, why don't we do another one?
yeah.
Um, Lastly, for any of the men listening, if you want to be a participant in a free ceremony online to
Oh,
connect
yeah.
in the dance of polarity at the end of the month, I'm doing an online experience that is absolutely free. And it's to harmonize and heal in the relationship with the feminine and masculine. So we can pop the link in there as well. And look me up on Instagram, the Phoenix Amara, and you'll see links to register. So
Thank you so much, Phoenix. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you in the next episodes. Have a wonderful day. And of course, please reach out with any questions or desires for episodes. Take care.
thanks, Ian.